All right, let's get this started. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim Nordstrom, and I'm the product category manager for gate automation here at Controlled Products. And I say good morning, that means because I'm based on the West Coast, but I know for some of you, it might be good afternoon. Either way, happy Friday. Thank you very much for joining this training webinar here on the LiftMaster TECHNA Industrial Barrier Operator. We will talk also about their other models, but focusing here today on the brand new launch of the Industrial Operator, offering a long arm or long arms solution to the barrier gate industry. Today's presenter is going to be Sarah Brown. She's the product manager of Techna. She lives, breathes, eats Techna. That is definitely what she does. We have a very good person on this webinar. If you've got a question in regards to Techna, we have the person on here who can answer it, and that is in Sarah. What I am going to ask, and certainly this is a Q&A type session, is if you will direct your questions down the bottom of your screen to the Q&A. Don't use the chat, but please type them in the Q&A. I'm going to be monitoring that. I may type an answer directly back to you. I also may pose the question to Sarah and have her answer it to the group. Just depends on the nature of the question. But if you'll just put any and all questions in the Q&A, I will make sure that they get answered to the absolute best of our ability. With that being said, Sarah, thank you very much for joining, and I'm going to turn this on over to you.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So as Tim said, I'm the product manager for barrier gate operators at Chamberlain. I work in the gate operator team. I've been with the company for about 4 years, a little over. And my primary focus has been on developing this platform of new gate operator products. That being said, we are going to be focusing on the industrial today, and Tim and Zach informed me that you may also want some information on our general offering as well if you're not familiar with Techno overall. So once we kind of get through some of this material, I will review some of the other resources available related to parking and commercial, as well as some of our support information that we've developed through the launch of this product. But yeah, we've had the commercial out for about a year now, and things are very stable. And recently we released the parking, and now we're releasing the industrial operator. So it is in stock at our DCs. So it's available for order today, for the white model as well as the arms. We'll go ahead and get into it. And then we are also joined by my colleague Bill, who supports our go-to-market for barrier operators. So just looking at Techno overall, why did we, mess with the MAT, which is, still available? Really what we wanted to do was to develop a true LiftMaster product. In the past, we had bought a product, the Mega Arm Tower from another supplier, DC Solutions, and it's a great operator. We just hadn't really innovated in 25 years, and I think it was, 5 to 10 years old when we purchased it. So when we look at the evolution of products and capabilities of products, it wasn't evolving along with the other LiftMaster products. So what we wanted to do is basically say, okay, what are the practical improvements that we can make for this? And then what are the things that we can do to make it integrate better with our other equipment so that you can use it in a total solution? So what we wanted to do was to deliver on those really practical features. So as I walk through this operator, you'll see that we made sure it was very durable, that it's going to work in pretty much all weather and voltage scenarios, that you have practical features like battery backups, heaters, interchangeable parts and things like that. And then on the back end, we also made it with integrated connectivity. So as you're integrating it with access control solution, or if you have it standalone, and you can connect it on site, you're going to have the ability to monitor that device remotely, which is really nice. And you can do that for free through our MyQ facility accounts. It's very easy to set up the operators. Looking at the different types of operators, again, we have like the commercial and community operator, the parking, and the industrial. So really what we wanted to do was come forward and offer a full portfolio. If you're familiar with our old portfolio, we had the sprinters, we had the mega arm towers, and then we had the BG790s, which were the giant wishbones that were going to be offsetting with the industrial. So we wanted to be able to service all those segments of the industry to be able to provide basically a platform solution. So if you choose to work with Techna operators, you know that you have a lot of interchangeable parts between the different operators. You really only have one system to train on because the drive and the control boards are the same. And then also it's going to meet the demands of the applications. So for parking, that would look like making sure that you have a high-speed gate that's going to be easy to recover from strikes and be able to get you very good diagnostic information, both on-site and remotely, to be able to make sure that you're maximizing revenue. For gated communities, again, you're really trying to meter the people that come into the facility or the gated community and make sure that you have, a trustworthy solution that has uptime. Commercial applications, again, uptime can be a bottleneck as well as being able to recover from strikes to keep your site up and running. And then industrial, that really, wide lane application up to 24 feet. We wanted to make sure it was robust for that. And then being able to provide, those diagnostics when necessary. Looking from a dealer perspective, what we really wanted to do was try to make it easy to work with and easy to service as well. And then also provide you information because in most cases, the customer is happy when they install it and they don't have to think about it again. And when something does happen, the ability to respond quickly with readily available service parts and the information that you need so that you're not constantly going back is really important. So we definitely took that to heart when we were developing the solution. Looking at, kind of common pain points in the industry and how we are approaching those with these products. A lot of these are not, specific to the industrial application. It's more gate or access overall. But there's especially in the industrial gates because they're more considered a specialty item. You can run into, either you have to buy a specific voltage or specific handing, or you didn't select the right arm type, or you have issues with stocking, and it makes it more difficult to be able to respond if you have a strike where the barrier needs to be replaced because it's so damaged, or if you're in a rip and replace scenario versus a greenfield, you don't have as much time to plan. So what we wanted to do is really be able to service our customers by providing stock industrial operators that can be modified in field to work with lots of different applications. So we do have heaters, solar, upgradable battery systems, as well as the ability to pair this with a three-phase converter so that if you do have that odd three-phase voltage, you can convert it to 120 voltage single phase and basically not have to worry about, showing up on site and it being a weird voltage and not being able to respond. The nice thing too is a lot of those accessories that I'm going to mention are also agnostic to other gate operators in the LiftMaster portfolio. So same three-phase converter that you would use for your other gate operators, the same with the heater and the solar kits, and it continues on. Another one is poor visibility leading to arm strikes. So one of the things about the Techna operator is it does have integrated lighting into the housing. And one of the reasons that we did that specifically was because of industrial applications where you have a lot of truck traffic. They pull up close to the gate and they don't necessarily see the arm, whether it's lit or not. So being able to have that lit tower is another thing that's going to bring visibility to the gate and reduce the likelihood of strikes. Another one, again, part stocking, etc., lost uptime due to gate strikes. You can actually connect these operators and get information when they're having issues or they're not functional. So you can actually see the status, whether it's open, closed, stopped, error logs. You can actually get as granular as to tell which loop detectors are activating and triggering relays remotely. All you need is your MyQ serial number that's located in the operator to be able to basically set up an account and be able to monitor once it's connected to Wi-Fi or Ethernet. And then battery backup. So we actually offer it as standard. Our battery backup that's standard is our two 12-volt, 7 amp hour batteries. It can be upgraded to 33 amp hour battery, especially if you're doing solar. But if for some reason those batteries die or become disconnected or don't get put in. It's not a battery assist operator. It's going to run off of AC power if it's available. So you're not relying on that battery for any type of assistance. So moving into the overall design of this product, as well as some of the commercial and parking, these are features that are more focused on industrial with the arm bracket because it's a little different in how you use it than for commercial and parking. But we do have a simplified control board, and I will get into the details on that. So again, it's very intuitive. The arm bracket has, flexibility for handing, so you don't actually need to hand for the application when you're ordering it. You can choose the handing on site. Again, high visibility for those potential strikes. It is continuous duty, so the entire platform, again, from a serviceability perspective, has the same gearbox, motor, as well as control board. So you're going to be able to not only have a very reliable system with a brushless DC motor with direct drive, but you're also going to be able to service your operators across a fleet more efficiently. And then again, you do have the ability to connect these. I've seen a lot of success in parking applications where, they're able to recover quickly from arm strikes, but they're also able to see if there's things going on site, exactly what time they're happening so that they can go back and look at videos and try to pinpoint, if someone hit something or if something squirrely is going on that you would have to have someone sit out in a truck and watch for, you can at least get some insight a little bit deeper if you do connect. So on the cabinet design, so this operator still has a aluminum cabinet that's powder coated. So it's a very durable coating. It goes inside the entire operator. This is basically just the shell. So you do have a very wide base for the ability to run conduit. Your operator is going to come standard for 120. If you need to switch it over to 240, there's an EMI board in the back of that junction box where you'll just switch that plug over. As you're moving up, you have the battery tray, the motor drive board, and then you have your spring and drive system. So you have that yellow piece that's attached to the purple, which is your gearbox. That yellow piece is your spring system. We'll get into that in a little bit more depth in a minute. But basically what that does is it balances out the operator internally, so you don't have to worry. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the BG790, but it had these like big counterweights that went on the end of a long, wood wishbone arm, and they were pretty, tedious and expensive to ship. So we're able to avoid needing counterweights by using these springs. And it's really just two mechanical adjustments to be able to change the handing as well as adjust the balance of the arm. It will come with the maximum number of springs that you would need for your application. So you don't need to worry about buying extra. You'll just take off any excess that you don't need and you can save them for service parts later. Again, we do have that continuous duty direct drive. If you ever need to access your drive system, this board has hinges. So basically you just loosen a couple nuts, flip the board up, and then you have access to your drive system if someone strikes the gate and it causes damage to your gearbox. For all the environmental stuff, we talked about this. We do test from -40 with a heater all the way up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we also do a ton of heat and humidity testing. And then we've done very extensive field testing, which I'll get into later to just validate that, these products are robust enough to be out in the field. We do have a modular arm, which I'll get into in the next couple of slides, that ships in segments and can be assembled in field. And this not only makes it easier to transport these really long arms, but it also makes it so that they're less likely to get damaged in transit. Because I know if you've worked with industrial operators and you've shipped wishbone arms or very long arms, there's a good chance that it's not straight or intact when you get it. So not ideal. So for the balance system, there's really two adjustments that you would make. One of them is changing handing, which this entire module will come off. You basically flip it 180 degrees. There's 3 bolts here that you removed. You would replace them here and tighten them. To change the spring count, there's a little bit more of an assembly to remove the keyway. You remove this end plate, you take off the springs you don't need, it comes with retention collars, and then you basically reassemble it. So those are the two, and there's videos available online on how to do this. But those are really the two mechanical adjustments that you need to make for the operator for it to be able to have the proper balance and proper handing. And there's arrows on top of the spring, and it reminds you in the menu interface that the arrows of the spring and the arrows of, the direction need to match when you are going to set that upper and lower limit, which is done electronically. So convenient there as well. So as far as arm bracket features, for the LED lights on the top, you will have the ability to program those in the main menu, and that's what the menu looks like. For shipping, so these arms will ship in segment lengths that are maximum 10 feet. This does vary a little bit from the parking and commercial because those arms are shorter. So the parking operator goes up to 12 feet functional and the commercial operator goes up to 14 functional. So from the edge of the operator out to the end of the arm in the lane. We are able to get those down to shorter 6 foot segments, but because of the length of this arm, they're a little bit longer, so you'll still have to ship them LTL. That being said, it's much easier than shipping a 18 or 24 foot arm in terms of the likelihood of damage. And the other thing is that these arms are really strong aluminum profile extrusion with basically reinforced joints. You can see here, this is actually, your aluminum extrusion, that would be your female part, and then you have your insert, which is your male part here. So you basically join those pieces of arms together and then fasten them with the bolts that we provide that have basically Loctite patches on them to hold them together. So the only time you really need to worry about stability is if someone strikes the gate, you just want to make sure that everything is still tight and shored up. Otherwise, we have, millions of cycles on these individual arms, and we're confident that you're not going to see any shifting in the joints or things like that. So the control board, if you look at these inputs, they should be familiar. If you've ever worked on a LiftMaster gate operator, we used the same input designations as we used for those gates. And that was on purpose for a couple of reasons. One of them is we wanted people to have a familiar interface that they could use. And then we also wanted to build out the functionality so that in the future, as we're doing development projects, we can implement this board in other programs. It has a really nice LCD display. It's 4 buttons. It's very easy to navigate. I will pull that up in a second and show you. It has, again, familiar accessory inputs. You do have the ability to use safety devices. So it is not required. Per UL, most barrier gate operators have that clearance requirement to not create entrapment zones. But if you do want to add additional protection, whether it be an edge or a photo eye, you can use our monitored safety devices now. You also have a lot of auxiliary relays to provide you with flexibility, both on the main board and the accessory board. The other nice thing is you do have 1 amp of accessory power where you used to have half an amp. And then, you're also able to use our plug and loop detectors now, as well as the service parts here should look familiar because they were the existing boards for our, expansion relays. So again, used available parts where we could, and then we created this new board. If you have a parking, a commercial, or an industrial, you can use the same board to service all three. They basically have color-coded ID resistors. You put the appropriate one in and it will populate with the correct firmware. So you don't have to worry about stocking a ton of parts. So for the industrial, what are we offering? So we have 2 colors of the industrial operator. One is going to be a charcoal, almost black gray. And then the other is going to be a white. And then we have 2 arms. So we have the IBG arm 18 and 24. And basically that's measured from if this arm is down, it's going in this direction. From this piece out, we're no longer going by the physical length of the arm. This operator again covers up to 24-foot wide lane. And then it's going to have a 6-second open time, which can be slowed down in the menu interface. And then for your specific pricing, this is just our list pricing. I would reach out to CPSG and they will give you your dealer pricing. So please reach out to them if you have questions on what your actual price will be. This is basically our MSRP. And then for just general, we do a ton of testing to validate our products. When you think of, our solutions, I wanted to make sure it was very robust. So we did, several alphas for parking, industrial, and commercial. We also did a pretty large beta program across all these projects. So not only did we do lab testing, but we did extensive field testing. We have two labs that are located in our Illinois area office as well as our Nogales, Mexico office. So through that, you'll see all of the cycles that we did, more than 77 million. And this was updated a while ago, the numbers. So, it's far surpasses that at this point. We're still continuing to test. Tons of arm cycles. We validated that spring system to make sure it's robust and not going to break. And then again, we do a lot of testing around environmental. So making sure that it can handle those temperature and humidity swings, rain testing, etc. And then we also do functional testing like battery and range testing. I think the biggest takeaway from this is that we are actually a UL certified test lab where we are able to get our products certified and listed through our own data because UL will actually come and audit our test labs and make sure that not only are our facilities taking accurate measurements, but they meet the standards of UL. So that's a pretty big deal and difficult to achieve. And then really quickly, I will pull up, let me see, the menu interface for those of you who haven't seen it. So this is actually what you would see on that little screen that I showed. Again, very simple. So if you have anyone that speaks another native language that's going to be working on these, they can easily change the language settings over and the entire menu will translate for them. You do have maintenance logs, so you can go in and see on the operator the last 50 events that have happened, which is nice if you don't have it connected. For overall cycles, you can actually set different intervals for service. You also have a service mode, which will lock out the operator while you're working on it that you can turn on. And basically you can toggle the operator up and down. You can tell what type of power it's on. And then this is where you get information on your connectivity as well as your MyQ serial number. Transmitters are super easy to add. You essentially press the button to learn. Connectivity, again, it'll walk you through the connectivity process if you want to learn. It basically takes you through step by step of how to get your operator uploaded online. You also have the ability to do counters. So if you want to know how many people are passing over different loops or how many open commands are going to the gate, you can actually track that too. These are resettable and have an ultimate as well. Multi-vehicle tracking. So this is interesting because when multiple people credential, it will essentially increment up and then decrease as people pass over your interrupt loop so that the gate does not have to keep going up and down every time a vehicle passes. So this is nice for industrial as well as other applications. With that 6-second open and close time, if you have a large queue of trucks that need to get through and they're all credentialing as they go, it will stay up until the last truck that credentialed went through, and then the gate will close and wait for the next credential, which is really nice. Limits are set using the up and down arrows, pretty simple. Your force threshold, so this does have force reversal. You can set it high, medium, and low depending on how many accessories you have. It's basically a sensitivity setting. For power failure, you do have the ability to have it either stay open or closed once that battery gets to a low state. And then lots of other configurations. You can actually set the different states of your loop or your auxiliary relays in here. And, all kinds of easy things to set so that you can do it from a menu instead of trying to have to figure it out. So Pretty simple, not a super deep menu. And then we also have a lot of information available on our support site to support that. And then I will pull up the support site really quick. I will throw a link to Tim that he can share out with you. And then I'll let Bill talk for a little bit and we can go into some more of the details around the marketing material. But for our barrier gate operators, we wanted to build out a good support resource for you. So we have our quick start guide, which is basically a information guide on how to, sorry, let's see, yeah, there we go. Sorry, quick start guide on how to install the operator and the basic functionality of the control board. So this is, very good if it's your first time installing or you need a refresher. It ships in the lid of every operator. The other thing that we have is information around installation videos, troubleshooting guides, and all of our manual information as well. So you can kind of scroll through and see what information is applicable to you. We also have a lot of information on troubleshooting. So if you click on the error code that you're experiencing, you can actually go in and get some information on how to fix it before having to, pick up the phone if you don't feel like calling customer service. So lots and lots of support materials that apply through all of the different TECHNA operators. So let me pull the presentation back up. And then I will continue.
All right. So in addition to all the resources that Sarah just showed, of course, we have, TECHNA Industrial dedicated brochures and data sheets for, quick and easy access on information. We also developed a TECHNA platform selling guide. So now that the full platform is out, we took a step back and said, let's create a comprehensive document that has, the overall, like, why TECHNA, what's going on here, a lot of things that Sarah mentioned in terms of, we've had the same type of operator for a couple of decades, and now, we designed and really put the look and feel to this newer one. And then what that platform brings, right, between that shared, board and system across, and then also the why for each type of operator, right? There's 3 different operators. What do they do? What differentiates them? Today we're talking about industrial. We have that foray from a couple weeks ago into the parking barrier, which is a much newer area, and then we have the tried and true commercial barrier for the rest of your applications. So there's more information in there about what these different operators are for. But also we brought in some additional information in terms of like pain points and again, more differentiators and what you get, but pain points that TECHNA solves across market pain points, right? So it's like, what's happening? What else did we see? We didn't just say, okay, we want to update this because we want to make something new. We took a look both at the shortcomings from our previous system, how we run our other operators, how to make that experience seamless going between them. Like folks at FenStech were saying, like, oh yeah, it's kind of like working on this operator's cousin. But then we also took a look externally and said, what's going on and what are people dealing with in the open market from other solution providers, and how can we bring some additional perspective and support there as we develop this new product. And so we have some information there overall of typical things that are seen. Sarah, for this one, really stressed on the fact that when you get into a lot of the industrial ones and specific to industrial, like, hey, there could be different types of handing and different types of units for different types of voltages. Whereas with this operator, if you have this operator and the 3-phase converter attachment, pretty much ready out the box. You can change the handing and you can be ready for any voltage right there to go. So there's like no more need for special ordering and waiting for these types of things because you might not have the right operator or any of that risk because it's ready to go. So I think that's an important one there to reinforce. And then we have more features and technical detail as needed, right? Because there's lots of different things about it, so I'll talk about it. But then we also get into like a selection guide so that as you're ticking off, looking what to go through, either building an order or writing up what you need, we lay out the different operators, we have the reminder there on the 3-phase converter. Then we have it, easy to figure out which arms you might need. We have some legacy references to help with that transition because we know that the previous operators have been out for a while. And then when we get into like the step 3 section, we have, additional attachments and accessories that go along with it, from protecting people, protecting vehicle aspects of a gate operation to, powers and heaters, and then also access controls and connectivity. So, I mean, these, the great thing about Tecna is that they're, internet enabled inside the unit. And so, as you bring internet to it, um, you can connect your SVIs. You can bring internet to it through the MyQCom. There's lots of different ways to get these connected. It's a little bit more advanced than some of our other operators in that fashion. And then, of course, we have all the different loops and loop detectors as well that we put on there, just to try to make an easy reference. Not everything we make, but it's got a good representation. And then as you get towards the end of this document, we really start talking about in these different environments. There's a lot that LiftMaster brings to the ecosystem in different areas of the business. Today we're talking about barrier operators in Techna Industrial. We have other types of Technas, of course. We got GDOs, we have outdoor equipment, we have the other gates. And as we get through each of these experiences, there's a lot out there that LiftMaster brings to the table from an ecosystem perspective. And so we wanted to make sure that we round this out with like, hey, these barrier gates are operating in different environments, and here's everything else that we have for these environments. And so, as you're working with, with your stakeholders and folks, there's other areas that, LiftMaster may be able to support beyond the operator.
Great. Okay.
Cool. And then, of course, we went through a lot of the technical support, but of course, we'll have training specific to the industrial operator as well. And so, along the different, LMS platforms and touch points that we have, and including hands-on. So, fully supported from a training perspective, and you saw the tech support stuff. So that's all I got from my side. So thank you, and we can open it up for discussion there. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast. Usually I'm pretty good at metering myself, but when I get going, I'm passionate about this topic. I really, this is a great product. And so when I see great products, I get really excited about it.
You were fine, Bill. That was perfectly fine. Just a reminder, if you've got any questions or anything, please put them in the Q&A. I have a couple questions while I wait for some of those to load in, or a comment too. Yeah, I'm looking at the Tecna manual. Just something that might come up in it. Let's say a customer purchases a Tecna Industrial with an 18-foot arm, and the lane's going to be 18 feet. Perfect.
Yep.
Okay. But then, as jobs do, the job scope changes, and they say, "Oh no, we're only going to have an 11-foot lane now." We decided to. Um, they've already bought the industrial. They've already bought the 18-foot arm. I know we can cut arms down, but on the industrial, is there a limit?
Yeah, I mean, we never recommend cutting things down below 8 feet. I would say that you're probably still safe around that like 11-foot mark.
Okay.
Yeah, you can cut them down a little bit. I would think just because of like the expense, if you notice that there was going to be that significant of a difference, I would go to the commercial operator because it's a little less expensive. So, if you get on site and you open the box, you can definitely, use that flexibility to cut the arm down. But, just due to cost, I would recommend probably trying to swap the operator and the arm out at that point.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah,
the arm expense usually scales with the length. But yeah, you can
it
make
does.
it work. But you're
Absolutely.
just going to end up paying more between the arm and the operator. So if your customer already paid for it, it might not make a difference. But if, you're on a tight budget program, it might make a difference for you guys.
Yeah, if they haven't picked it up or anything like that or shipped it, yeah, absolutely would change it. Just sometimes they get it, they even
Yeah.
get it
Oh, for
mounted, and
sure.
then the
You get on
scope
site.
changes. Yeah.
Or, maybe someone wants to do two operators instead of one. Yeah. So it changes, especially because like in the industrial applications, and a lot of times like you might have, I mean, really the limit's like how high does that arm go up? If it's 24 feet, it's going to be 24 feet plus a couple feet because of where the arm is, as well as like a pedestal that you're mounting it on. So if you have something like a power line that's right below where you're going to put your gate, a lot of times your limitation, you do have an upper limit on how high into the sky you can go.
That's right.
So yeah, in some cases, people will determine that like for that wide lane, it makes more sense to have two commercial operators that face each other in tandem. So it's always good to look at that and try to do a site walk before you purchase just to make sure. But yeah, you do have some flexibility with that when you get on site.
So the aluminum arm and a power line, not a good mix, you're saying?
I mean, generally hitting power lines with anything. I mean, squirrel, bird. Can,
There is a
I've known
question. There is a
them.
question, but I want to make a comment on something that you said. And you know, every Techna that I've opened up, in fact, every gate operator I've opened up, regardless of the manufacturer, they put a really nice installation manual in the box. I see them. And I'm as guilty as anybody that why would I spend my time reading that? So what the comment I want to make is I've been on several job sites and I've been involved in numerous trainings with the Techna. The programming menu is extremely intuitive. I just start poking around like, yep, there it is. Yep, there it is. Yep, there it is. There's not a lot of, for lack of a better term, there's not a lot of fluff. It gets right to the point. You're not getting lost in sub menu after sub menu after sub menu. And that actually leads me into the question that Adam asked. He says, do the LEDs on the cabinet change from green to red? Um, and I'll let you answer that, Sarah, but it's
Yeah.
very intuitive in the programming.
Yep. So I'll actually show you what it looks like in the menu. So you have your cabinet LEDs. You go in and you basically choose what you want, and it will tell you what the motion is going to be. So when it's down, it's red. When it's moving, it's flashing red. And when it's up, it's green. And then if you want it to be red only, so like if it's facing a street, railroad compliance, very niche, you should have red only. And then again, it tells you exactly what that's going to be. And then if you have it near someone's house and they don't want it to be lit up at all, you can turn them off. But yes, it will tell you exactly what the animation is in here.
The Tecna, thank you very much. Yep, that helps. And it's that simple. You just go in there and push a button or two and you get to change it and it happens instantly. Um, one thing that's near and dear to my heart is I love to do solar gate operators. And I know I will be doing a Tecna Solar sooner. In fact, after this, I have to call to one of my coworkers to help design a Tecna Solar. The question I have on it is if I'm going to do a solar, would it be recommended that I know there's a solar option. Um, is it recommended we turn those cabinet LEDs completely off?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna draw power. So for all of the operators that we offer, there's a chart in the manual. So one of the times you definitely want to crack the manual is if you're looking at solar applications, and it basically shows you for each accessory or each feature how much amperage you're going to draw for that, and then you can
Awesome.
kind of calculate based on that in that solar chart what performance you're going to get in terms of number of cycles. So you have a couple, it's kind of like building a recipe, right? So you have your solar chart, so it shows whether you're zone one, two, or three. Then you have your amperage usage, which you can either, hook all your stuff up and measure it, or you can use our table as a guideline and basically build out what your gate would have connected to it to figure out how much power it's going to draw. And then depending on how much power you need and what zone you're in, you can select how many panels you're going to need, and it tells you essentially how many cycles per day you're going to get. So yeah, the more accessories you put on it or the more things that you activate like LEDs, the faster you're going to drain that battery. So you definitely want to be mindful of it. When you do solar, we always recommend that you upgrade to the 33 amp hour batteries, which is going to give you over, pretty much a month of standby time. So you do get more standby time with that, but it's always, to your point, Tim, probably good to turn off any LEDs because they do drain power if you're going to be doing a solar application, especially if you're in like zone two or three.
I'm looking at the solar section of the Tecna manual, and it just like your gate operators, it's extremely simple and easy to use. It gives me all the current draws right there. By all means, anybody on this call, I'm not going to make you go to the manual. If you do have a question or you want to put together a solar one, I'll be happy to help you. But if you're like a lot of people and you're working at night and I'm not answering my phone or what have you, you can refer to the manual to help you very, very simply to do it. But all the data is there. It's really simple on it. So fantastic call on that. Um, One question that did come in, and I've asked you this, but I'll ask it here anyway, is ETA on LEDs for the industrial arms.
Yep. So I'm hoping to have those in the next quarter. Right now, we do have a product that got approved. I'm working with our supply chain team to get those set up. Those will be available for the 18-foot arms.
Perfect.
And if you order like an 18-foot arm now and you want to retrofit it, we will have just the LED strip available as well. You would just slide it into the channel and there's a connector at the bracket, and that's what, drives your LEDs through the menu interface.
That's a great point because that was a question that has come up in the past is if I buy a Techna Industrial today, it's installed and 3 months later the LEDs come out and I want to add them. I can simply just buy the LED strip and
Yep.
away I go. Yeah. Very,
Yep.
very plug and play.
Yeah, and the same with replacing it. So like we wanted to keep in mind that like these gate operators, I mean, unfortunately, barrier gate operators get hit quite a lot.
Hmm.
They're usually, I hate to say it, but like almost the first line of defense sometimes versus like a larger security gate or a larger, more expensive gate in like a community application. And people don't pay attention. They hit these things. So we wanted to make it so that if you needed to replace an LED strip, it was very easy. There's a channel on either side of the arm that you slide the LED strip through, and again, it just connects at the harness in the arm bracket. There's no additional like wiring needed, and then there's also no driver because it's driven by that board.
One, again, I guess I just like to, my experiences with the machine. How about this? I'd like to pass on is I'm a little bit older in my years now, and down on the ground working on a control board or an operator is not nearly as comfortable as it used to be. And what I will say about the Tecna is you open up the lid and there's the board at standing height. And for me, that's huge. It's absolutely huge. I'm not trying to bury my head inside of an operator and see, what's happening. It's right there. So just from an installer point of view, I like that feature a lot.
Yeah,
So
we wanted, when we were designing it after you get the conduit run, I wanted everything to be able to be done, sitting on a 5-gallon bucket or standing.
yeah,
I
it,
was like, it doesn't, you don't need to be on the ground on your belly on a piece of cardboard to do this.
I
So
agree. I agree. It's very nice. It just, I tell you what, until you spent the time on the ground, you really do appreciate it when you don't have to go on the ground. Um, It has the ability, if need to, we could put 33 amp hour batteries in the thing. Not necessarily just for solar. Maybe you have an area where they do expect power outages to last a little bit longer than normal. So we can upgrade
yeah.
the batteries for that. This is a true DC machine. That is all the questions that I see in.
Okay.
If anybody has one, please type away. Otherwise, unless I'm missing, let me make just sure. Um, nope, I don't see anything else. Be happy to give you some of your very precious time back. Um, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Sarah and Bill for putting this together. Uh, Please, if you have any questions, you can always certainly reach out to me. You can reach out to Sarah. You can reach out to your local CPSG branch, whatever you have. I know this is a fairly new product, but something that Sarah did say, and I'm going to drive home, is if you've worked on the LiftMaster gate operator, you now know the Tecna. It's pretty much that. No counterweights. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have changed the handing on a Tecna. I changed it on the floor of the Fence Tech show. A customer said, "How do you change
About
the hand?"
that.
I showed it to him, and he kind of looked at me cross-eyed. I said, "Let's just do it," and brought out my tools. We did. It was that simple. Just change the hand. It took us all of, I don't know, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. So no skews to stock. We don't stock left hand. We don't stock right hand. I believe they come all right hand, though, if I'm not mistaken.
They do, yeah. And you can tell because when you look down on the springs, there's arrows, like literal arrows. And basically, when the arm's going to be in the down position, when you're facing those arrows, the arrows just need to match. And if they're not, there's 3 bolts that you remove, you flip it, and you put the 3 bolts back in.
Easy peasy. It really is that. Well, thank you all very much for attending this. I greatly appreciate your time. We will send out post-webinar notes. I'll send out some of the literature that you saw on the presentation today so that you'll have that. They've done a good job with the literature on it. So again, thank you very much for attending. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks for your time,
Great.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.